Hello everyone, Oregon Moto John here. We're going to do a front and rear differential oil change on this 2021 RZR XP 1000 Rocks and Trails Edition. But for any other XP or really 900 or even Turbo, the procedure is going to be the same. All we need is this, some rear transmission or rear differential oil. I like to label it just so I don't mess up, but it's that AGL fluid. That's what we're going to use in the rear, and you'll need 2 quarts. I think it's like 1.9. In the front, you need about a 1/4 quart or 8.5 ounces. So, and you'll need demand drive fluid for that. And I label that, so I always like to have some on hand. Need a ratchet, need a funnel with a little hose off the end, some shop towels, gloves are nice. And then for, at least on this model, for the fill and drain of the front diff and the rear diff or rear transmission, you just need this hex bit drive or Allen drive bit, and it's an 8mm. An 8mm does the drain and fill plugs. And I find diff tranny changes to be easier than a motor. You don't have filters. It's just a matter of pulling the plug, let it drip out, spew out, put it in a pan, and then refill it. And then same goes for your the rear transmission. So very easy, easier than a motor. If you can change your engine oil, you can do a front and rear diff. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and another thing, I've had probably 4 or 5 RZRs over the years, never had a transmission or a front differential problem. And I think it's because I changed oil reasonably frequently. So every 25 to 50 hours, more towards the 25, I change out the front and rear transmission front differential fluid, and knock on wood, I have not exploded a front diff yet. So, and I think it's just oil changes. Sensible driving doesn't hurt. Like if you're in the air, you don't rev the motor out, and then when the wheels hit, then you're gonna explode your front differential. So there's some common sense things that we probably all do anyway, but aside from that, I think it's the maintenance. And it's also nice that in the 2021 and forward, they use the turbo differentials in the XP 1000. So in a sense, the front diff is really overbuilt for the horsepower, which I like. That's great. I mean, here's your front differential right in here, and it's a turbo differential. So that's good news. All right, let's get started. So here we are coming under the machine, past the winch, going under the skid plate, and there's a hole in the skid plate right there. That is our 8mm hex Allen drain plug. So we're going to put our pan underneath there, loosen that up, and just let that drain. So let's just get that plug out of there. Once I break it loose, I remove the ratchet. That way I can push upwards, and I feel it's loose, and out we come. And this has only been in there, really around 20 hours. And I mean, you can see there's quite a bit of metal. There's a shininess to it. It's no big particles, so we're fine, but I'm glad I'm getting that changed. With only 8.5 ounces in there, I mean, get that oil out, replace it. That's just not a lot of oil. Let's talk about the front diff drain plug for a moment. Notice how it is impregnated with this magnet. So it has a magnet in the tip. Okay, take a moment, wipe that off. You can use some electrical or contact cleaner if you want to. Wiping it off actually gets it quite clean. Also notice there's an O-ring on there. Okay, what that means is you don't need to go crazy tight with these. That will stay in with just hand tight. Learn from me. I made a bad mistake one time with a RZR I had. I was in a hurry. I torqued these too tight. I was upset because I'd had my oil changed by a dealer that said they changed it, and then without going into all the details, the oil didn't get changed. And I found out because one of my fill plugs was stripped, which caught my eye. So then I checked to see if it was changed, and turns out it wasn't. And so long story short, I ended up doing a front and rear diff change before I was riding the next morning. I think I was in a little bit of a dither, a little frustrated, and I tightened these things down with kind of angry man strength, if we've all been there at one point. and didn't even think a thing of it. Rode. Many months later, I went to change my diff oil. I couldn't get these things out. And you can see this is aluminum. So they're not going to take a lot of force to strip that. So I heated them with a torch, lightly tried to get them out, and they wouldn't come out, and these got stripped. So then I had to get easy outs for head bolts and with a torch, and those things I did get them out. But anyway, I never went tight again. Of course, I never did it in an angry state of mind again either. But this has an O-ring. Doesn't need to be very tight. So none of these need to be tight. Just hand tight, snug when you put them back in. Learn from me. I made a big mistake that one time. You don't want to be underneath the machine with a torch and easy outs and drilling and all that stuff. That wasn't a fun oil change. Okay, so here I have my plug, oil drain plug cleaned, magnetic surface cleaned just with a rag. It's preloaded on this extension, so I can just feed this up into easily up into the hole, which I've wiped down. It's nice and clean. And I can just put that up in there, and always by hand thread these in. Of course, we don't want to cross thread anything. Okay, so we'll finish getting that up in there, just hand tight to where it bottoms out. Okay, now I'll get my socket on there and tighten it down, just snug but not crazy tight. This is aluminum with an O-ring, doesn't need to be crazy tight. As you've seen me do in other videos, I'm choked up on the wrench here so that I'm not going to get on the end and really reef on that. And there it bottomed out. Now I'm just going to give it a little bit more. I'm going to on the end give it a little bit. Bottomed out, it stopped. That's it. I'm done. Don't over tighten them. Now it's just a matter of removing your fill plug. Same 8mm Allen bit. You can see I put a shop towel underneath this, not for when I remove this, but for when I refill it, in case I overfill it. And just loosen that up with the extension on there. It clears the frame. And then I'll just take that out the rest of the way by hand. It doesn't hurt to wipe around your fill plug hole, make sure it's clean. I wiped off the plug and I have it preloaded onto my extension so that once the oil starts to come out the top hole, I can just pop that back in. Let's go ahead and get our fluid. So you're going to use the demand drive fluid for the front differential. I measured out 8.5 ounces in this, but quite frankly, I usually just put my funnel up there, pour it in until it starts coming out the top fill plug, stick the plug in, and I'm done. But for the sake of being accurate for everybody, I thought I would actually measure something for once. Put your funnel end hose well into the differential, stick it in there. You don't want this to pull out. It'll go in there past the opening. So now you can see I have the funnel hose in the front differential, and this will kind of prop nicely against the A-arm, upper front A-arm and the shock. And let's go ahead and put our fluid in. So here we go. Let's go ahead and pour that in. Pour it in slow so it doesn't pour out your funnel. I think with front differentials, getting clean fluid in there is really essential. I don't think those front diffs like dirty fluid when you only have 8.5 ounces. I mean, that's basically a cup of oil. Just a tad over a cup of oil. Cup being, you know, roughly 8 ounces. So go ahead and pour that all in. And I have my plug here ready to load that in as soon as that is in. I don't see any oil coming out the fill hole yet, so they must have the capacity figured out to where it's, you know, doesn't get overfilled. If you had a fraction more, it wouldn't hurt anything. I gave it just a splash more to make sure some was coming out of that upper plug. You can see it coming out of my rag, and now I'm going to put this in by hand. So we don't want to cross thread. Put this in by hand, just like that, bottoming out. And then I'll just give it just a fraction of a snug down with a ratchet. It's not going to take a lot. We're just going to lightly snug this down with a ratchet. There it is. It's bottomed out. It's got an O-ring. I'm just going to snug it. That's it. Let's move to the back. Okay, here we are at the back of the machine. Here's the rear differential or rear transmission fill plug. So we'll just leave that in for now, but let's go underneath the machine. And if we go just underneath, you'll see there's some different holes here in the skid plate. The one that's going to have the fill plug is right, or the drain plug is right there. This one right here. I went ahead and wiped around with a rag in there to try to get some of the, there you can see it there, that same 8mm Allen. So that's what we're going to pull out. Don't go all the way forward, way up there. We've got our engine drain plug up that direction. Okay, let's take that drain plug out right now. We're just going to give it a good pull. I'm glad I didn't get that too tight last time. Don't have to use a torch. Still cracks me up that I did that. That was silly. Okay, let's remove the drain plug. Of course, have your pan ready to go to catch the oil. And I'm just taking this out. Remove the ratchet. I'm pushing up lightly so that when this is loose, I can, oh, there it is. I'm going to pull my hand out of the way right now. There it comes. Okay, and there's 2 quarts in here, so it might drain for a while. While that's draining, you can see this magnet has some stuff on it. Let's wipe that off with a rag. Like I said, you could use contact cleaner as well, but most of the time I feel like I can get it pretty clean just with a rag. So let's clean that while that drains. Okay, so we're going to put that plug back up in there. Put it on the end of the extension so it's easy to get at. And there it is. And just put that in with your fingers. Don't want to cross thread that. Okay, there it is, seated out. Now I'm just going to snug that up with a ratchet. Okay, now I'm just going to snug this up by hand. Not crazy tight. That had a rubber ring, gasket O-ring on it, so it doesn't need a lot of torque. Just snug is good. Another tip, like I did on the front differential, I'll take a shop rag and put below here, and that'll catch any oil that overflows the overflow fill plug. And then when I'm done, I pull that out, and it's a lot easier than just wiping around in there. Let's go ahead and remove the fill plug. Go ahead and remove the fill plug. That's it. And then we'll finish taking that out by hand. Okay, here's a good tip. Have your AGL oil ready to go. You're going to take roughly 1.9 quarts, but around 2. Have those open so that you can keep use your funnel and just keep pouring it in. The other thing is have your 8mm bit preloaded with your pre-cleaned drain plug on a clean rag so that when you're done pouring the oil, you can drop your funnel down and just put this plug right in. So we're all ready to go. Let's do that. So here I have my funnel ready to go, loaded into the rear transmission hole, and we're going to pour 2 quarts into here. And when it starts to come out that little hole down there, I'm going to stick my plug back in. This just takes a little patience because the funnel can only accept the oil so quickly, so take your time, you'll get it. Okay, here it is weeping out, and I was wrong, it's not 1.9 quarts, it's less than that. Because I got about, I don't know, half a quart in or a little more than that. And then see how I had that preloaded, I was able to quickly put that in so I didn't have more draining out onto my rag than I needed to. There we go. We're just going to put this in by hand. It has a O-ring rubber gasket on there. And then we will snug this up. Just hand tight, not crazy tight. That's all it's going to need right there. That's all it's going to give. And then going back to this capacity, yeah, that's like, I put roughly 1.5 quarts in. So it is not 1.9 quarts. I don't know what I was thinking on that. So along those lines, look at your own capacities for your rear transmission so that you get that right. But if you have 2 quarts on hand, I guess that's the takeaway. Have 2 quarts on hand, and you won't come up short on the AGL fluid. Okay, I just officially looked up the capacity, oil capacity of the rear transmission. It's 44 ounces, which is 1.375 quarts. So there you have it, 44 ounces, or basically like what I found here, a quart and about 1/3 to a half-ish. So once that starts to come out, obviously you're there. Here's why it's so nice to have this rag. You pull it out and minimal cleanup because most of it was caught by this rag instead of draining all over there. I'll still wipe around in there and maybe use contact cleaner to keep it clean. when I have a partial quart of something that I've used, I always like to put a little X on it. That way I know it's a partial quart and I don't come up short-handed on oil. So just a good little tip, I guess. If you want your oil funnel with the hose to drain, you can hook it on the rear little toe ring there. I'll just set it there for 10 minutes and let the oil drain out, and then I'll put that funnel in a plastic quart Ziploc baggie so it doesn't attract dirt or anything. Okay, there we have it. Thanks for watching. Got some other things coming that we can do with this razor. Just a last thought here. How often would I change my differential fluid? Well, if use your common sense. You know, that's if you're. I generally do it when I change my engine oil, but not always. But I would say most of the time. If I was out really pushing the machine hard at the dunes, driving with maybe some friends that are pushing hard, I might do it after 5 to 10 hours. If I was just all easy miles on trails that I'm not really having a lot of wheel spin, maybe riding with my kids, just basically putting in miles, not pushing the machine hard at all, boy, I bet you could go 25 to 50 hours on that and be fine. But generally speaking, I'll do it every 25 hours or so when I change my engine oil. That's been a good recipe for me. I haven't had, knock on wood, a front or rear differential problem or an engine problem of any kind. So I think that frequent oil changes help. That's my my conclusion. But you could be your own judge. Maybe look at how hard you're running. If you're in mud, lots of wheel spin, deep thick mud, water, maybe you're worried about water penetration. Boy, you could change it. I could make an argument for changing it after that ride, after one ride. But I think most of us around the 25-hour mark would be about right. And it's enjoyable to maintain your own machine. It feels good knowing that how your way around the machine a little bit. So I would encourage you just to keep track of it, do it yourself, and I think it feels good to maintain your own machine. I like doing my own maintenance. We'll service the CVT at a future date. I'll take that cover off and clean it and just show you some of the basic things I do. Take some like a lightly abrasive pad to take some of the rubber off from the belt transfer on the sheaves of the primary and secondary clutches. Clean that with some rubbing alcohol. Inspect the belt. Since I've been using a Razorback temp gauge to monitor temperatures, I just have to admit I haven't had any belt issues. I also use a blowhole fan inline, but anyway, that's a discussion for another day. But thanks for watching on this oil change. It's much easier to me than doing a engine oil change. So if you can change your own motor oil, don't hesitate to do your front diff and your rear transmission oil. Just easy. No filters, just drain it out, plug back in, fill plug out, fill it up, done. All right, have an awesome day. Hello everyone, Oregon Moto John here. We're going to do a front and rear differential oil change on this 2021 RZR XP 1000 Rocks and Trails Edition. But for any other XP or really 900 or even Turbo, the procedure is going to be the same. So all we need is this, some rear transmission or rear differential oil. I like to label it just so I don't mess up, but it's that AGL fluid. That's what we're going to use in the rear, and you'll need 2 quarts. I think it's like 1.9. In the front, you need about a 1/4 quart or 8.5 ounces. So, and you'll need demand drive fluid for that. And I label that, so I always like to have some on hand. Need a ratchet, need a funnel with a little hose off the end, some shop towels, gloves are nice. And then, for at least on this model, for the fill and drain of the front diff and the rear diff or rear transmission, you just need this hex bit drive, or Allen drive bit, and it's 8mm, and 8mm does the drain and fill plugs. And I find diff tranny changes to be easier than a motor. You don't have filters. It's just a matter of pulling the plug, let it drip out, spew out, put it in a pan, and then refill it. And then same goes for your the rear transmission. So very easy, easier than a motor. If you can change your engine oil, you can do a front and rear diff. So let's go ahead and get started. Oh, and another thing, I've had probably 4 or 5 RZRs over the years, never had a transmission or a front differential problem. And I think it's because I changed oil reasonably frequently. So every 25 to 50 hours, more towards the 25, I change out the front and rear transmission, front differential fluid, and knock on wood, I have not exploded a front diff yet. So, and I think it's just oil changes. Sensible driving doesn't hurt. Like if you're in the air, you know, you don't rev the motor out, and then when the wheels hit, then you're gonna, you know, explode your front differential. So there's some common sense things that we probably all do anyway, but you know, aside from that, I think it's the maintenance. And it's also nice that in the 2021 and forward, they use the turbo differentials in the XP1000. So in a sense, the front diff is really overbuilt for the horsepower, which I like. That's great. I mean, here's your front differential right in here, and it's a turbo differential. So that's good news. All right, let's get started.